It's my great honor and privilege to introduce our distinguished and well-loved speaker tonight, Dr. James Ulness. James is a longtime professor of psychology at Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. He's integrated the best of mainstream psychology with Eastern and Western spirituality, the depth psychology of Carl Jung, the transpersonal psychology of Michael Wasburn and Ken Wilber, and Agassioli's psychosynthesis, together with the insights of spiritual science in the work of Rudolf Steiner, have given Dr. Ulness his unique approach to the study of human nature. James Ulness, welcome.
Thank you, Vaughn. Now, as relaxed as you can, and you want to eventually get so relaxed that you put your body to sleep, but you keep just enough of your muscle tonus so that you can sit up and not fall over. But want you to just experience moving your consciousness around. Move your consciousness down into your right hand, way down, way into the fingers. Okay, now back up your arm and across to the left arm, down to your left elbow. Put your consciousness there. Now put your consciousness on your forehead. And many of you will notice that there's muscle tension there. Relax those muscles. And you relax them the same way you would as if you had your fist real tight, and then just relax it. That's all there's to it. Just relax it. Relax those muscles up here in your forehead. Now notice the back of your neck and your upper shoulders. How tense it is there, most likely. Relax those muscles. Now the lower part of your back, relax those muscles. And you can do this through your whole body, way down into your toes. But we won't do that now. We'll just move our consciousness into your heart center. That's that whole area below your neck and down to your diaphragm. And it includes your lungs, your heart, and your thymus gland. Put your consciousness there in your heart center, because that's where you will go, and that's how you will go when you want to commune with the Master. And you are invited to do so you can enter there. But you need to be still. You need to still the noise out around you, turn the TV off, the radio off, and turn off your chattering mind, turn off your emotions, just get as calm and free of all inner disturbance. Because what you want to hear is that still small voice. And you can't hear it above the clamor of everyday life. Or at least it's very hard to do so. The still small voice will speak to you, but you won't hear it if you don't listen. And you won't listen if you don't get still. So that's where you go, and that's where we'll try to stay as much as possible now. So may our feelings penetrate to the center of our hearts and seek in love to unite with those who share our goals and with the spirits who look down benevolently on our heart's earnest strivings, sending us strength from realms of light as they illuminate our love. Now, climate change, the war in Ukraine, gun violence, destruction of the environment, half of the government on destructive shutdown and trying to do nothing but stop the other half from operating. Why is all this chaos and turmoil happening? How, as theosophists or anthroposophists, can we best meet these challenges? As many of us as possible need to be thoughtful and informed, but not filled with fear. That's the real key here. Be thoughtful and informed. Many people that we know don't want to be informed. They tell you that straight out and they're proud of it. They don't listen to any news. They don't pay attention to what's going on in the world, and they don't seem to care. They won't be of much help now. Maybe next time around in their lifetime, they will be. But for now, we need those who are thoughtful and informed, but not filled with fear. Now, you remember Jesus of Nazareth's farewell address to his disciples shortly before he was crucified. They were really concerned. Where will you go, Master? They didn't want him to go and leave us. What will we do? I must go so that you will find my spirit in you. Now ponder on that at times. Finding that spirit in you, that is extremely key to what we want to do. In trying to transform the world into making it a better place for all human beings, we need to transform ourselves. And in order to do that, we need to pay attention to that spirit within us. Now, this Jesus of Nazareth also mentioned, he didn't focus on all the bad things that are happening. Neither did Rudolf Steiner or many other great teachers. They'll mention them, but they will not dwell on them and focus on them and create great fear. So I'm going to do the same thing tonight. I'm not going to dwell on the dark forces that are working in the world. I'll mention some things about it, but my focus will be more on the positive side. For he said, there will be wars and rumors of wars, but nevertheless be of good cheer. But nevertheless be of good cheer. Now, how in the world are you going to do that, knowing what's going on? This voice inside will say, my Holy Spirit that I will send you will be a comforter to you. And we want to get an idea of what that means, to be a paraclete, a comforter. And this will also be the spirit of truth. Truth, the spirit of truth. Now, what we need to understand what's going on is an overall picture. We need to learn from our study of Madame Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner and others, the deeper aspects of human nature and how this all came about and its purpose and where we are now in the process. Now, before our three-dimensional world began, God had already created 9 ranks of beings, as most of you know. This would be the seraphim, the cherubim, the thrones, the dominions, the dynamis, the powers, the archai are the powers, the archangels, and the angels. 9 choirs of angels. That's the way it's expressed in most of the spiritual literature that you would read, that they use the word angels in a general, loose way to refer to all the higher beings, unless they're in particular focusing on that 9th rank, which are the actual angels. The angels can work with individuals. Archangels cannot, usually, only rarely can they work with individuals. They work with relationships. And that's why this Christ speaking through Jesus of Nazareth said, wherever 2 or 3 or more are gathered together in my essence, which is love, there am I in the midst of them. That's the Christ Spirit speaking. Now, the Christ Spirit would not be able to come directly into you without blowing you apart like an 800 volt electricity through your small radio. So what happens is that Jesus of Nazareth, the risen Jesus of Nazareth, the resurrected Jesus of Nazareth. Now, in saying, I must leave so that you will find me, my spirit in you, then is saying, I will carry that right into your heart center. And then the Christ can be there through me, just like it was there when he was with his disciples on earth. So that's how that can happen, that this Christ consciousness can be right there and speaking to you, with you, even if you're alone. Now, how is this spirit, the paraclete? By helping you understand much more deeply the nature of human beings, you will be able to weather the storms of life with understanding, by knowing much more deeply karma and reincarnation and the whole process of how this still small voice can be heard. The more deeply you can understand these things by your study of theosophy or anthroposophy or spiritual science, in fact, will comfort you. You will understand more deeply, and you won't be you want to study deeply, because some people who just are kind of half learned, they think they can really help you out by they know a little bit about karma, and so on. They might say, well, those people you don't have to worry about that. They're suffering that way because of what they did in their last lifetime. People who talk that way have a terrible understanding of karma and reincarnation. So you want to be able to have a deep enough understanding of it to either correct what they're saying, or don't let what they're saying influence you in the wrong way. So we need to pay attention then to that spirit. And why? As you know from your study of Blavatsky and Steiner, that there are these 9 choirs then of angels, these 9 ranks, and there's something that you know from everyday experience that will be of help here. You have made Kool-Aid for your kids, or you've made liquid feeder for your birds, the hummingbirds in particular, and you know that when you mix in the red or the orange into the water, it instantly starts to turn that color. It doesn't even take a half a second. It's just that fast. But as you have found out, there's a lot of that stuff that you poured in there that hasn't dissolved yet. And you shake it around, and that helps a little. And you take a spoon and you spin that around in there and work at it. Maybe work at it for a whole minute or more, trying to get that to all of it to dissolve. Now, you know, if you have a chemist friend, you might ask, why is that the case? Why, why doesn't it all dissolve at the same rate? Well, it doesn't. And it's actually a kind of a good way to understand a lot of things. All the kids you send to school, some are going to be really fast and ahead, some, the bulk are going to be in the middle, and some will be lagging way behind. And that's also the way it is with higher spiritual beings, angels, archangels, archai. Um, they also are evolving, and some are evolving faster than others, and some, the ones that are lagging behind, have an effect on us that isn't appropriate for the present time. And the exousiae, are the beings that are often referred to as the spirits of form, because it was the exousiae that are charged with creating this three-dimensional world as a place for us to develop. And there are beings who are left behind who don't want us to be in this three-dimensional world. A lot of New Age literature is that way. You know, get out of here as fast as you can. You don't want to be here. You know, this is a terrible mistake to come here. That is a terrible teaching, and don't buy into that. This three-dimensional world is created for us by the Elohim, the gods, you might say, because in spiritual literature, the word the gods refers to all these spiritual beings. Even though many of the spiritual teachers are monists, that there is one God, but then there are all these other spiritual beings that are also called gods. It's helpful to write God then in a capital G, and then the gods with a lowercase g, if that helps. But they also are gods. And if you look again in the family Bible that you might have lying around in your house somewhere, and you'll notice that it says, let us, this is the Elohim speaking now, let us create humans in our own image. The Elohim are a unique type of being. They are both masculine and feminine. And so when we are created in their image, we, each of us individually, are masculine and feminine. It is not the case that you might hear from some pastors and Sunday school teachers that the Elohim created some men and some women. But no, every single person is both masculine and feminine. Now, you want to disconnect then a solid meaning between masculine, feminine, and male and female, because the males among us are both masculine and feminine, and the females are both masculine and feminine. Now, what is masculine and what is feminine? Feminine means to receive, to accept, and the masculine means to send forth. So when the Elohim decided to create this, or began to create this world of ours, their masculine and feminine sort of separated, and the source, which is the source of love, sent out the divine intention for what this world is to become. And the divine feminine then receives that. And she is full of wisdom. She is Sophia. She is Isis. And she is wisdom. Now, the offspring of those, if you unite those two, just like Isis and Osiris were united, and then the offspring is Horus, the offspring of the source of love and the source of underlying wisdom that is in everything is this what's called the cosmic logos. Now, the cosmic logos then is also referred to as the Word, capital W. And the Word was in the beginning. The Bible, the Quran, all of these spiritual books, they came thousands of years later. But in the beginning was the Word. That means what can be said about? What is the story of? What is and that is the Word. So when we read in the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was divine, or with God and was God. All things were made by it, and without it was not anything made that was made. And the Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us, full of grace and truth. Now, this was possible for people in that Palestinian area because Buddhism was well known. Even in Bethlehem, there was a Buddhist center, either in it or right near it. And Buddha then helped humanity to develop a much deeper compassion. And that's essential for what we need to do in establishing widespread brotherhood. Not pity, but compassion. Now, the love then of the Christ unites with or goes along with compassion, just like a hand and a glove. So the Buddhist teachings are really, really helpful. The Eightfold Path and especially all of the emphasis on compassion. We're gonna use that notion a little later tonight. Now, when we were created, then we were created for a purpose. This 10th rank that we're to become then is to become the beings of genuine love. Now, that isn't the case with the higher beings. Now, that isn't their purpose. That isn't what they're created for. But we're created to be beings of genuine love. And that means that you will love out of compassion and just the love flowing from your heart without being coerced or compelled in any way. If a robber, sticks you up and wants your billfold and all your jewelry, holding a gun on you, and you give it to him, that's not love. That if you give out of any kind of coercion or being forced to do so, that's not genuine love. What needs to happen is that we become so filled with love that it overflows in us from our heart center out to everyone around us, not just our blood relatives, but to our neighbors and to the strangers and even to the enemies. That's the hardest part. But that love and compassion then is an essential for our development. That's what we need to develop. And in order to do that, we must become free. We cannot be compelled, even by the spiritual beings. We cannot be compelled even by God. We cannot even be compelled by this Christ being. We must act out of genuine love. Now that means that we must go through some lifetimes. I don't know that anyone could do it in one lifetime, but at least some lifetimes where you are, where you have kind of stripped from you every belief in the spiritual world. You know, long ago you used tea leaves and you used smoke and watched that, how it formed. You did astrology, you did numerology, you did all kinds of things as what was called divination, and then you acted on it. You had to go through at least one lifetime or a part of lifetime where that is all humbug. It's all nonsense. You don't pay any attention to it all. You don't believe in it at all. And only later, when you have developed further, then can you take it back in again and become a really good astrologer or numerologist or whatever. But not one that views it coercively. But only one that you use sort of like a weather report. You know, you really want to drive from Moorhead to Minneapolis, but there's storm warnings. And you say, yeah, well, how serious are they going to be? Oh, just a heavy rain. Well, I can handle that. So you decide anyway, in your freedom to go, instead of, oops, I can't go today because of the storm warning. You must get that way so that you aren't a Pinocchio on the end of strings. You become a real human, like Pinocchio became a real boy. This is essential that you pass through that time. Now, this age that we're in is an age that involves the development of what's called the consciousness soul. Earlier on, in earlier ages, in Egypt and so on, we developed the sentient soul, really developing our sense of beautiful things and uglier things and in between. We had a sense of valuing beauty. And then in the Greek and Roman times, we developed the intellect, really beginning of trying to understand things through our intellect. Now we continue to do that even now, but in 1514 was the end of that Greco-Roman influence so much, and we went into the next age for developing the consciousness soul, it's called. And that's a shorthand way of saying conscious awareness of my own self as an agent. I am an agent. I can decide this or that. I can do what I think is best, and I can even take on the responsibility of it. And I can even recognize when I fell short and I should have done even more to help somebody or whatever. That's myself as an agent. Now, what happens in our age, however, is that with the development of science and natural philosophy, which is really important and really good, I'm not saying anything against it, but it helped us to really develop our rational mind and our thinking. But after you get to a certain point in developing, your rational mind and your logical thinking can't carry you the rest of the way. That's where you need something more. And we'll just lump it together now at this point and just say we need revelation alongside of the actual facts of science, not to reject the facts of science, but to see that there's something more that goes even beyond that, and that's available to you. Now, In an age of materialism, the default condition then in every single one of us growing up is that we will develop a sense of ourself, a picture of ourself, a self-image that is based on solely on the information that comes through our bodily senses. This is what we can see, hear, touch, and so on. This is how we form our self-image as we're growing up. Now, in order to produce beings who can arrive at becoming beings of genuine love in the world, we have to have this freedom of, even from the divine strings, and so they have to be cut, and we have to be free. And in that freedom of the divine, our whole culture then has just sunk into materialism, that through our bodily senses, you don't come up with the notion of God and angels and that sort of thing. You only got that from Sunday school, and some old people who still believed in that sort of thing. And you went on to college and so on, and kind of left all that aside. Maybe when you then started having children, you probably brought them to church or Sunday school because you think that it's good for them to, but you don't go anymore. You don't, it doesn't mean anything to you anymore. That's a phase that we needed to go through. You maybe have already gone through that phase, and that's a whole different situation. In order to become independent in our choices, we had to develop a side of ourself, a nature that isn't straight out of the spiritual world, that isn't immortal. We had to develop a mortal nature. So we are dual nature beings, both mortal and immortal. But at the present time, in this age, we grow up where the default condition is totally developing the mortal self. The mortal self is who you think you are when you look in the mirror, when you buy clothing, when you relate to other people. That's who you think you are. And you you want to maybe strive to learn a lot, go to school and study, but your mortal self has no future beyond death. Your mortal self has bookends, birth and death. That's it, period. And if that's all a person thinks they are, then there's nothing after death except what people will remember of you, pictures they take, buildings they name after you, and so on. But that mortal self is gone, and it never will be again. So those teachings, even teachings from the church, that there is no reincarnation, was actually right in far as the mortal self is concerned. It does not reincarnate. You're James in this lifetime, or Susan in this lifetime, and you won't be James and Susan again next time. That they're done. Those are names given to your mortal self. But your mortal self can be influenced by your higher self. But in honoring the divine intention of giving human beings complete freedom, it cannot control you and make you into what you were created to be. It can prompt you. It can prompt you through dreams. It can prompt you through influences from other people, from books, and from even from movies. It can prompt you to raise your consciousness, and but it won't coerce you to be what you were created to be. You have to choose that, and that's the value of the mortal self, because the immortal self would never even make such a choice. It would already be in proper relationship with the divine. So your mortal self is necessary, but you want to eventually grow beyond identifying yourself with it. You want to start thinking every once in a while of your higher self, which is continually then growing and developing further. The more you study great art and literature, poetry and music and science and well all of the arts, literature. The more you study that, the more you are helped to raise your consciousness to a higher level. And this developing higher self then will continue to develop until it becomes equal with your true self. And in the meantime, however many lifetimes it takes, your guardian angel will carry your blueprint of who you're created to be until you become it. Now, we could say much more about the larger picture, the overall picture, but we have now a sense of that we have this dual nature. We're created that way, and our higher immortal self is kind of only operating until you're about 3. Could be 2.5 for some, and little over 3 for others, but it's only during that the last periods of your conception, well, before you're born, and the first couple of years or so of your life after that. It works on you to tweak your brain development, to develop you in a way that will make it possible for you to become who you were created to be, but not do it for you. Do you see the difference there? So when St. Paul talked about what we're up against in the world is not just mean, nasty people and that sort of thing, whether they're in high or low positions and so on. We're actually in a struggle against principalities and powers. But now you know what they are. Principalities and powers are the archai and the exousiai. And some of those have fallen behind. And so they're operating on us in a way that is not appropriate for our state of development now. We are in, as you know from Blavatsky or Steiner, or other theosophical literature that you might be reading, we're in the 5th age of the 5th cycle of ages of the 4th round of cycles. And we're going to develop through 7 rounds of cycles and ages. So you can see where we are now is just a little past halfway. And so we're far enough along, though, so that this age between 1514 and add 2160 years to that, what is it, 35 something? That's the age that we're in now. What we need to do is to overcome as much as possible every strain of selfishness and all forms that separate us from others consciously. Racism, sexism, that is genderism, um, and all kinds of isms that that we have learned to use as ways to separate us from others. Sometimes it's just the riffraff. I grew up in North Dakota, where the temperature was as low as you guys talked about before we started. Yeah, I remember 30 below zero with a wind chill on top of that. Um, I, I remember when it would make your eyes water, and the water of your eyes would freeze. It was really cold, um, but um, it's it's um, it's possible for us to learn to adjust to where we are karmically placed. Now, that does not mean that you have to be stuck where you are forever and ever. Thank goodness I moved out of Fargo Moorhead. I shouldn't have said that. I loved my job at Concordia. It was great. I just hated the weather there, the wind and the dust and ish. Um, it was not a pleasant place for human beings. Anyway, I did really enjoy it for about 27 years or so, in Moorhead. Um, Now, we're in this age where we then have a naturalistic, materialistic upbringing. We're steeped in it. We're marinated in it. Christmas is all about gifts and presents and consumerism, buying presents and shopping for gifts and all of that. Um, and going through that whole process of whether Uncle Joe will like the present we're getting him, or the kids will like Spider-Man or whatever. Um, it's all commercialized, and the same thing with Easter. Um, Now we are needing then to overcome all of these these isms, um, even religion. Uh, I was raised Norwegian Lutheran, uh, and you're raised even thinking that that's the best religion. Um, and so you run into other people who are from a different religion, and it takes a while to see that, well, I guess they're okay too. Uh, it takes a while to really adjust. And because it was so cold there, the people would say, well, it keeps the riffraff away. None of the people we wouldn't want to be living around here bother to even come here because it's too darn cold. Um, so riffraff even is something you got to overcome. Nobody is so low and undeserving that you can't find a way to love them. There is a saying that's well worth noting and using, and that is that in every good person, there is some bad. And in every bad person, there is some good. So in all the ones that you have learned to call bad people, their enemies and all that sort of thing, know that there is some good in them. And you can find that good, hunt for that good, search for that good, help to bring out that good, no matter what your profession, if you're a teacher or whatever, to help bring out that goodness that is inherently in them. Now, dealing with the principalities and powers then requires a deeper understanding than the mortal self can manage. And it requires understanding the spiritual forces that are underlying human development, the the forces of darkness and the forces of light. So Star Wars was a Hollywood way of getting at that theme, and it taught millions of people some understanding that's helpful to them in understanding the struggle that we're in. Now, developing this sense of the consciousness soul, that you are aware that you are an agent, then can be used then for good high purpose. You can choose then to choose to have more of an appreciation for art and science, and especially appreciation for truth, and to seek the truth, and at the same time not become haughty or put downish about your understanding of truth. When you're talking to relatives or others who have a political point of view or a worldview that is so different from yours, don't just say, well, you're wrong or you're lying or whatever, or you're ignorant, but rather listen deeply to everyone and hear their point of view, and speak lovingly. And that doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them, but at least it's very helpful to know that somebody's listening to us. When Carl Rogers was alive and doing psychotherapy, he went through lots of boxes of Kleenex because his clients would start crying a lot. And psychologists were puzzled at how Rogers' therapy, if it even could be called that, could be so helpful to people. He would just kind of nod his head, yeah, yeah, he didn't act at all like a psychoanalyst. He didn't probe around. He just listened. And then when people were finally asked in exit interviews, why was it that we noted that you cried a lot, went through a lot of Kleenex? Why? And many of the people said, it's the first time that I've really been listened to. And so listen deeply and speak lovingly to all of your neighbors, to all of the people that you come across, and try to understand them. Now, what characterizes this age then, this fifth age, is egotism, because people develop an individual self-image. They know for a while they're members of a family, but by about 9.5, they're making a decision already deep down, maybe not a conscious one, of whether they're going to just imitate their parents and be more like, continue to be like their parents, or to become more of who they think they are on the inside, and that other people don't really know or understand. People will often say, well, they don't really know me. Even my best friends don't really know me. So this sense of individuality then is extremely important, but it leads to egotism. A person with too weak of an ego development needs to be helped all the time. Oh, what should we do tonight? Well, I don't know. You decide. Well, should we go to a movie? Well, you decide. What should we have for supper? Well, you decide. They're incapable of really making the decisions that they need to make to operate in this world. And a healthy spirituality must be walking the spiritual path with practical feet. That is really important. You don't want to become so spiritual that you're useless and they have to do everything for you and take care of you like an invalid. You you need to develop your good sense of well, your good common sense, and use your logic as best you can. Understand truth and search for truth, and uh, use an understanding of your self-image to begin to understand how you are seen by others. You've learned, if you've developed any skills at getting along in the world, how to act differently around different people or in different situations. So you're kind of like those old IBM ball typewriters. Remember those? And so you go into the post office and it presses your post office button, or you go into the grocery store and your grocery store button. You go into a party on Saturday night and it pushes your party button, and you let your hair down and you really get into animalistic behavior. You maybe that's not right thing to say. Anyway, you have all these different faces that you present to the world, and many people have different notions of who you are because they see you in different circumstances. But you can create an improved self-image. You can learn to be more honest. And when people ask you if you want to join this or that or do this for our club, if it's something that you really do not want to do, you learn to say no instead of saying yes just to please them. Because then you end up for a year or two or more doing what you really don't want to do, and it stresses you out until you finally get out of that job. So you learn to be honest, and people will value that in you. That you are an honest, dependable person, and you develop qualities of character that begin to produce a beautiful personality, a beautiful person. Not just looking at your physical body and how beautiful that is, but your character is beautiful. You can work at that, and so. Getting beyond egotism, starting with all forms of self-interest, and recognize when this is self-interest. I'm not going to say yes to this because I want to stay home and wash the car. That may be okay, but maybe it was more important to go and participate in getting something done for a group. So you start paying attention to what's self-interest, and you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Sometimes your self-interest is pretty good, and it should be honored in you. Other times it becomes selfish, and people begin to recognize that you're quite a selfish person, and that can get to the extreme of narcissism. And those characteristics are going to develop more and more strongly. We're seeing some models of extreme egotism and narcissism in our world today. So it isn't hard to find examples, and we work at overcoming those. Now you probably remember from your first attempt or more of reading through the book of Revelation. It is a real challenge. The ordinary mortal mind cannot understand it. It can only be understood with divine imagination. But people, even a lot of church people, are just using their mortal mind when they're talking about the book of Revelation. But when you tried to read it, you read early on how the Spirit spoke onto the churches. In the churches, that meant communities of people who were turning to a God relationship. And the Spirit in every case, in each of those 7 churches, were deliberate sections or phases of humanity as a whole. So this church, this community, represented this aspect of human beings, and then the next one another aspect, and so on. And so it goes through each one of those, and it says this and this and this and this I like about you, but this I hold against you. Overcome this, and I will, and then give you something, you know, a reward. Something good will result from it. And there are 7 of these overcomings. They're very important to learn and to recognize which represents kind of the people that you would know, the group that you're in today. So overcoming, and even overcoming bad habits, clipping your fingernails in church, that's a nuisance. That bothers other people. You start noticing aspects about yourself that you want to overcome, and work at those. My suggestion is to make a list of 12 of these things about yourself you want to change. Maybe you have a habit of interrupting other people's sentences before they're done speaking, and that's annoying to other people. Well, there are many different things that you know about yourself, or maybe you have a tendency to put other people down, or to make yourself even better than they are. So as you've noticed things about yourself that you now think are kind of faulty habits, make a list of 12 of these, and start on the first one at the top, and work on that one for a month. Work on developing more patience, more kindness, and so on. Stop telling jokes that make fun of other nationalities. A lot of people told what was called Polish jokes, and so on. Overcome those, and then after a month, you will most likely have made some progress. Then put that one back down at the bottom of the list, and move the second one up into first place, and work on that one for a month, and so on, and rotate this list. By the time you get through the whole list of 12, and you get back to that first one again, you'll be a much different person by having worked on those other 11 ones. And so you'll be able to make more progress than you did the first time. And so just keep rotating that around. That's a good thing to do.
Excuse me, James.
Yeah.
Would this be a good time for a short break?
Well, yes, it would. But I see it's 8:20, and I do want to get to how we're going to deal with the world situation.
Yeah. So how about if we take 5 minutes?
Okay, let's,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep, we do 5 minutes.
I was going to say, just get up and get yourself a cup of coffee, or go to the bathroom and come back, or whatever. But okay, five
Well,
minutes.
Yeah,
Or
we'll
do you want to skip the break, and everybody just take care of yourselves and come and go?
We can skip the break, James, if you prefer.
Yeah, we want to hear everything you have to say. We can do that. So everybody just put yourself on mute and take your camera off if you need to go get something to drink, or just, what's it called, a bio break, I think they call it. So,
Yeah.
just do that. And so you keep going, and we'll keep the recording going. And so if you don't need a break, then usually it's for the speaker also to have a break. So if you're good, then we can keep going.
Okay. All right. And imagine a lot of people can still hear if they walk to the kitchen and
Yeah.
get a cup of coffee.
Right.
And you don't have to hide sipping on a cup of coffee. I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I mentioned before, you can work on yourself, self-improvement through education or just self-study, whatever. You can make a lot of progress on developing yourself. But you want to do that then with a good sense of noting whether this is just your own self-interest or not. If you want to, reading Dale Carnegie's book, How to Influence Other People, is a valuable book to read, but you want to do it in such a way that it isn't just how to manipulate them better. I know some people who are into astrology, and I like that about them, but what I don't like is that they try to use their understanding of your astrology to know what your weaknesses are and how you can be manipulated. And so, work on rooting that out of yourself. Now, as I said, the feminine is accepting, is receiving, and is full of underlying wisdom. And the masculine is sending out. An example of this is take a match. A match is just a thing there sitting by itself. But if you rub it against something that's rough, it will receive that tension, that resistance to the roughness, and it will respond to it by lighting up. It will receive the fire. And then it will give it out, and it'll give out warmth and light. So it has to be feminine and then masculine. And you can be that way in your life. I won't go into this now, it would take too long, but I'll just mention that the most powerful force that I know of in human relationships is the feminine. If it's positive and not done out of low interest, let's say, it's really annoying, especially to men, but I would guess to all sorts of women also, to have a woman who is a nagger and a interrogator. Where were you? How come you were gone so long? How come you didn't call? And and it's all these, how come, this kind of thing. You just say, well, just put some duct tape over your mouth, will you? We do not like that kind of feminine, but a feminine that asks the questions, that draws out, is really powerful. You can be at any meeting. Suppose that your spouse or your best friend or whatever, or a colleague at work, asks you to go along to a board meeting or a special meeting where all the high level people are going to be there, and they're having kind of a party because it's into Christmas season, and they're standing around talking to people, and one of these high level people, you maybe don't even know the person's name, happens to see you there and walks over with a drink in his or her hand and starts talking with you, and you start asking, how did you get interested in this work? How what were they interested? Was it a school teacher or a book or some relative that got you interested in this line of work? Oh, no, I did this. And they'll start telling you their story. And then you ask, well, geez, you know, this and this and this and this. And that's all you did the whole evening was ask these good questions. And that person, no matter how high they are in your company or whatever, will tell other people, I had the most interesting discussion last night. It was a very bright person that I was talking to. It's a powerful thing, and you can help people with it in terms of how they might improve their education, or how they might find a better line of work, how they might find their way into the 12 or the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. You can do that with the really good feminine side. Then the masculine is more direct and forceful and so on, and it's a boss needs to have that. They have to tell their employees what to do, and so on. It takes a different kind of boss when the employees start to grow psychospiritually, so that they need a more creative boss who isn't just a tell you what to do person, but draws out of you, from your experience, what you think is the best way to deal with this issue or problem that the company's having. Work on developing a healthy masculine and feminine, and use it for good. Now, if with our feminine nature we accept and receive the gift of Christ's Spirit in us, we will not only be a good cheer, as he said we should be, we will be filled with peace and joy. Now, why would that be? Psychologically, you wonder, why would you start to be filled with peace and joy and real happiness, not just superficial happiness, like stopping for an ice cream cone on a hot day, but real, genuine happiness that can endure even times of sadness, sorrow, and bad news, and that sort of thing. This real happiness, spelled with capital letters, you might say, not this superficial stuff. Real happiness comes from living in accordance with your design. Not living in the way that some school teacher told you you should live, or your parents told you, or your clergy told you, or your medical physician told you, or other health people told you. Listen to them and take seriously what they say, and there might be something really good that you can draw from it. But stay with who you truly are, and try to become more of who you truly are. Your biological, your mortal self is by design operating out of your DNA instructions. Your DNA is your map for your mortal self. But your mortal self, now, as I said, is just here only between birth and death, and it's done. That mortal self never comes back again. Only what is part of you that begins to be in attunement, in alignment with your blueprint, the blueprint that you came into this world having developed it with the help of high, lofty spiritual beings and the most holy part of yourself. You develop that blueprint. Where you will be born, what country, what language you'll be raised in, all of these things that are part of your real blueprint, then is not something that your parents know anything about. Your counselors that you go to who are really helpful in helping your mortal self. Boy, they're really helpful. They can help your mortal self real well. They just don't know how to help your immortal self. They have no idea what's your cosmic blueprint, your logos. But your guardian angel, which you stopped believing in when you got done with Santa Claus, or the Tooth Fairy, you don't maybe believe in that at all, but they're real. There is an angel being who is assigned to you by the spiritual world to carry your blueprint until you become it, and then you free it to go do something else. And so it tries to nudge you in your sleep, in your dreams, in books you read, or other experiences you have. It tries to nudge you toward spirituality. Now, maybe you've given up on the church because it was too authoritarian, but you have this deep down interest in searching for God, searching for the spiritual. What would the spiritual be if you stripped away everything that was just tacked onto it by this religion or that religion? C.S. Lewis tried to do that with his book, Mere Christianity. What is it when you strip away the Roman Catholic part, or the Lutheran part, the Episcopalian part, or whatever? What do you have left? What's the essence? What's there after all of that is gone? And so young people today aren't very interested in organized institutional religion, but they are interested in spirituality. They are interested because, as St. Augustine put it, our souls are restless and discontent until they find their relationship with thee, O God. So when your higher self and your guardian angel have nudged you along so that with free choices that you make, you become more and more of who you were created to be, you will be more and more living your design, your God design. And the more you live your God design, the more happiness you have. Otherwise, mortal self-happiness is just superficial. It's kind of good. I love a dish of ice cream, that sort of thing. But I don't treat that as my deepest happiness. Now, so with your feminine side, let's say you accept this invitation to let me into your heart center. Behold, I stand at the door and knock, and I will stand there with infinite patience for all eternity, for 100 lifetimes, if that's as long as it takes. I will never give up on you. I will stand at the door of your conscious heart center consciousness until you open the door and let me in. And then once in there, then I invite you to come in. Come in many times a day, or come in when you are carrying burdens. Things are fretting you. You're worried. You're filled with anxiety, or whatever. Bring all these frets and worries and cares with you as you go in, and just leave them there, and let the divine world take care of them. And they will. That will happen. You will discover that will happen. And the more you discover it, the more you build up a kind of a confidence that, hey, there's something real happening here. At first, I was just kind of doing it like a kid with piano practice, because I've been reading spiritual stuff, and it encourages me to do this. But I'm discovering with my own experience that this is real. This is real. This still small voice prompts me. It does not say, coerce me in that you better do this or you're going to be damned to hell. No, sir. It just prompts you. And it prompts you on all sorts of things, little things, big things. Nothing is too little and nothing is too big. It will prompt you. And if you do that, then you are operating out of your feminine self to accept it. And then your masculine self will send forth spiritual light, light that cannot be seen with the mortal senses, but it's spiritual light. And the wisdom of the world is carried in that spiritual light. And it will be filled with strength, not, weightlifting strength, but strength of character and courage, so that if you know that something should be done, you feel really prompted, I should really do something to help out humanity in this way. Whether it's helping out let's say the Salvation Army is so short-handed because of COVID, they can't meet all their obligations to hand out soup and sandwiches on a cold day, and you feel prompted to do it. Well, then follow the prompting and see what happens. My guess is if it was a real prompting and you were listening and you did it, you will feel good about having done it. I'm surely glad I did it. I could have done other things with the day, but I did this instead, and I'm glad. You'll have the strength and the courage then to stand up for what you believe is right and not back down because of what the neighbors will think or whatever. And what's more, you will receive power. Now that's something you maybe want to go back and read. I encourage you to read a lot of the spiritual literature of the world, the Bhagavad Gita and all sorts of good things to read. But since you probably grew up with some church influence from your family, there may be still a Bible around your house. If you read the letters of St. Paul, or read the Gospel of John, then you will come across lots of references to light. At least 179 references to light, and you will read about power, and I will give you this power, and you wonder, what in the world? Your pastor, your priest, your rabbi never really spoke about that, but what should I know about that? You will know, because that still small voice you can talk to and talk with. You could say, I grew up not understanding a thing about this. Can you teach me what this means on a deeper basis? Yes, you would get the power, the divine power that created this world, that created the sun and the moon and the planets, that creates the rain and the wind and the power in plants to come up after a terribly cold winter, the power in the whole of life, that divine power is yours to use, but only if you are morally equipped to use it to serve the good. So we're prompted to grow morally and to develop our sense of goodness. It's good to help our neighbor. It's good to listen to them. It's good to do what we think and know is right, or what we believe is right. And the more you are morally able to use divine power in a way that's not selfish, the more it will be given to you. And you can use that to influence the affairs of the world. Because we're not going to get much change, some change. I don't want to discourage any change, but we're not going to get enough change from the top down. And we're not going to get a lot of change from the bottom up. We're going to get change that spreads sideways from those people who are developing morally to get over selfishness, to use divine power to serve the good. And it's those people, and they don't have to be large numbers. So don't get discouraged and say, well, geez, I don't know anybody like that, so I guess it's hopeless. No, it takes really only a few, because that divine power is stronger than bombs and bullets and guns. It's more powerful than anything. It can still the waves. It's really, really powerful, but it cannot and must not be misused for selfish purposes. There are divine ways to prevent you from doing that, to keep you from misusing it. Now we're to continue our inner development to help others. And we want to become servers of the good. Let's take three. We could take many more, but let's take three major things happening right now that are challenges for humanity. Let's take climate change. I have some relatives who, the relatives on one side believe that there is something to climate change, and many of the relatives on the other side think it's just a lie. It's not to be believed at all. Don't pay any attention to that. We want to keep doing what we're doing with the way we use energy and so on. So this year, it's been decided to split the 4th of July celebration, so that on the 4th, one set of relatives come, and on a week later, the other relatives come, because there's just too much animosity, and it's not good to stir up a lot of stress within relationships. So that was what was done around here. Climate change is going to produce massive changes in migration. And it's going to be handled in many ways. People who are deniers want to keep selling, real expensive property along seashores in Florida or wherever. They want to, these are good investments. You can sink a lot of money in there and make a lot of money and so on. But given another 20 years or more, that property won't be worth $1, because that's going to go underwater. And we know it's going to go underwater. And so there will be class action lawsuits brought up by many people together, just like with the tobacco industry, and say, you misformed us. You knew the same facts, or you heard the same facts that we were hearing from good scientists about what's going to happen to that seashore property, but you denied it and you didn't want the public to know about it. You kept the media from printing anything about it so that the value of our property would stay high. But now they can't do that any longer because it's starting to go under, and people are noticing it. Your property is not worth a dime, and they're going to bring these class action lawsuits, and there'll be other things. We have to learn how to accept immigrants, and we've been learning a lot about that from Poland and even Hungary, who has a dictator type government that doesn't want any real helping of the immigrants coming in from the Ukraine. The people are doing it. We're seeing an outpouring of caring and helping by many people. We're learning a great lesson for humanity, and that's what needs to spread. If you have to leave your country because it's going underwater, so at least as many as we can handle can come here, and they will receive lots of help. And the people who are here won't say, well, we've been here all the time, and so we should get the best services from our government and so on. Why help these newcomers as much as you're helping us, or even more? That's the way. So you have to learn that parable in the Bible about how the people came in at the 11th hour still were honored. So climate change is real, and we're going to have to deal with the ramifications of it, which we could go into at length, but I won't here tonight. Hunger is a major problem, and some places in the world are saying, you people and your media are focusing so much attention, almost all of it, on that war in Ukraine, that you're forgetting all about all of the starving children and the hunger going on in other parts of the world. It is a major problem. And you might ask, well, why doesn't Jesus just do it? You might have, when you were young, have heard the story in the Bible about feeding the 5,000. Why can't Jesus feed the 5 million now? And the answer you would get from the still small voice is, the purpose of hunger is to teach the rest of you compassion. And you sit up straight. What? Yes. It's to teach you compassion. I do want and hope that the people will not suffer from going to bed hungry every night, but I do want you to learn compassion. And as long as there is widespread compassion in the world, you know how much more in need of compassion we are. So learning the compassion from the Buddha and learning the love from the Christ, then we can deal with this issue of hunger. And I would say, if there are no longer people sleeping under underpasses, I worked during the summers and then one whole year at Wholesome Bakery in Fargo, working my way through through college. And in the cold winter, the manager of the night shift would leave a door open right next to the railroad tracks. And many, what a lot of people who hate the word charity call bums, would come in and look for bread and stuff. We had lots of bread and donuts and all kinds of stuff left over from the day. And they could come in and take whatever they wanted to eat. And they would find the semis that had just come in from long distance driving and park inside in the warehouse part. They would sleep, they would go underneath the motor or the engine and sleep there to stay warm. This was a really wonderful way of showing me as a college age person what compassion can do in helping the hungry and the unfortunate. COVID has helped us in many ways and to transform humanity. Many people are going back to the way it was. But what they don't know is as many people are dying today per day on average as what died during the 9/11 catastrophe, and how we reacted to that. Just, possible to imagine that many people getting killed. Those bad guys were going to hunt them down. And now it happens every day that many people die. But, when you talk to people, they say, well, it's, institutions are reporting people dying of COVID because they get paid for it. Yeah, that's true. There is some of that. And you should seek the truth and not deny it. But I live in a 55 and older area in Arizona, and there are a lot of people dying all the time there. Many of them I know are dying of COVID. It all balances out. The ones that are counted that shouldn't be counted and the ones that should be counted that aren't. That probably balances out. And in the balance, it still leaves us with, 29 or 2,800 a day. This has reshaped much of our life. A lot of people have learned that they can work from home, and bosses have learned that they didn't need their employees to come in, and they've helped them to find ways to work at home, get it set up with computer software and all that sort of thing. They could live anywhere now. We don't all need to go to the big cities to have jobs. There's going to be a great change. And even a lot of the offices in big cities will be standing partially or largely empty because they're not meeting there anymore after we're done, being shut in by COVID. People are really learning to enjoy their families at home, enjoy life in a different way. Our whole sense of family living and work is going to change. Our culture will be dramatically different. It will not just go back to the way it was. So even though it has been a hard lesson, it is teaching many people to live better and to find a healthier lifestyle than what they were living. And that's going to be the future. Now, not everybody's going to do that. They're just going to go back to the way and try to have it all the way it was before. But thousands and thousands of people in every culture are going to live differently and better because of it. And so we have gained from learning to deal with climate change and hunger, in spite of how terrible those lessons are. They're very, very hard, but they are bringing humanity through an initiation process. See, you know that you need to develop individually and have, individual initiation, whatever it is that you find is your way, your path. But humanity itself is evolving. If we had a camera that would take a picture of where people are at in their development, we would see a normal curve distribution. And we would see that if we took this camera out 500 years later and took a picture of the same culture, it would be very changed. It would be moved in the direction of the more advanced ones. And in another 500 years, it would move further. And so when you come back around in your next lifetime, after several hundred years of Earth time, the whole of humanity will be different. You'll be entering into a humanity that is so different from the way it is now. And so people who are learning to serve the good will carry some things, a lot of things with them into their next lifetime, because everything that you developed out of your mortal self, by raising it to a higher level because of the prompting from your higher self and from your guardian angel, everything then that comes into alignment with your cosmic blueprint will become immortal, and you will never have to learn it again. It will be with you from lifetime to lifetime. And that's just something, all this studying you're doing, you think, oh geez, what's it good at doing? What if I get sick and die? And this sort of thing. Well, whenever you do die, everything that you've learned that is good, that's of these high principles, will be in your soul the next time around. And so, you might be as far along as you are now when you're 22. Just think of that. Now, we could take a look at the work of the angels in the human astral body, but that's too big of a topic to squeeze in tonight. I think we've gone as far as we need to go tonight, and I'd like to just end with this short verse. This was from Rudolf Steiner for teachers to use in the Waldorf schools. The kids would learn to wonder at beauty, stand guard over truth, look up to the noble, and resolve on the good. This leads us truly to purpose in living, to right in our doing, to peace in our feeling, to light in our thinking, and teaches us trust in the working of God, in all that there is, in the widths of the world, and in the depths of the soul.
Oh, James, thank you so much.
Thank you for taking time in this evening when you could be doing all kinds of other things to join us.
And I'm wondering, it's the time to conclude officially, which you did. Are you willing to stay on for a few Q&A?
Sure. questions, sharing of your life experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just so everyone knows, you know, we're officially concluding the program now, but so stay or sign off, whatever is best for you. But it would be great if you could do a few questions, Jim.
I can, yes.